Greetings, friends. Your cartoonist pal Stan here, back on a Wednesday with another episode of 50 Years in the Dungeon. Once again, we're going to be doing a work in progress. I want to just start by addressing the fact that I've done a lot of work in progress episodes recently. I Yeah, at the end. No. I've gotten back to starting to schedule people and getting some interviews lined up, but it needs a little lead time. I fell off the horse for a while. I got kind of busy doing other things. Figured I can do some drawing. That'll be enough. It's not enough. I want to talk to more people. I want to have more interviews. So I just want to let you know that there are interviews coming up. I have been talking to some folks. Couple have said yes. A couple have said, "Can you get back to me in a month or so?" And we should. I don't know that it'll start as soon as next week, but quite possibly beginning next week we'll start having some new interviews on this show. What is this show? Well, this is a show where I talk about the tabletop role-playing game hobby slash industry. I've worked in this industry for 25, 30 years. 30 years, more or less, full time, and freelance before that. So I'm not just your cartoonist pal. I'm your game designer pal. And the whole industry just had its 50th anniversary a couple of years ago, with the 50th anniversary of the game Dungeons and Dragons, which was the first tabletop role playing game. So when D&D had its hit in wow. When D&D had its anniversary, the whole hobby had its anniversary. And so I started this show for the first year focusing entirely on D&D, and since then I've opened it up to talk to people more broadly involved in the hobby and the industry and the games and having fun, and that's what the conversations are about. While we talk, I begin drawing a cartoon homage to a classic piece of gaming art. And that's the art I've been working here on Wednesday nights recently. I've been working to finish up the drawings I began during previous conversations. And the one I'm working on tonight is the very last one in my queue from previous conversations. So I'm either going to have to talk to someone or I'm going to have to start drawing something on my own. Either way, it'll work. But let's say I just wanted to start this episode by addressing that kind of elephant in the room. How can you have an interview show when you don't have people to interview? As I say, it's coming. Anyway, Michael and chat, thank you for joining me. Good to see you as always. Hope you're doing well this week. I'm doing good. I'll tell you, one of the reasons that I have fallen off the horse, as I said, is that I've been very busy working on a game design project, which is good for me in that it's a fun thing that I get to do that we'll be able to share with you eventually. And however, as so often happens, there's a non-disclosure form associated with that, so I can't tell you about it at all. But focusing on that, it's been a while since I did full-time game design or tried to get the output of doing full-time game design. And that's a big part of what kind of tripped me up in the early part of this year. Getting my sea legs back, as it were. Hello, Becky Mayer. Good to see you. Glad you could join us here on a Wednesday night. Yes. So lots of things kind of had to get shuffled off to the side so I could focus on doing the design work on that project that I can't talk about yet. I kept up with the show. I kept up with the drawing. One thing I didn't keep up with was the behind-the-scenes process, sending out invitations, organizing people for upcoming episodes. But, as I said a couple of minutes ago, I'm back on that horse, things are in process. I've sent out about a dozen invitations this week, and hearing back from people. Like I say, I got a couple of yeses, a couple of can't do it right now, but how about a month or so from now, or get back to me in a month or so, and we'll see how we're doing. And a couple of big names, big names that I've been wanting to reach out to that have showed at least tentative interest. I'm also going to be going back, and those of you who've watched the show, and if you're hanging out listening to me ramble like this, you've watched some of the show, know that I've interviewed a bunch of people, and a lot, maybe even most of my interviews ended with, "Hey, I'll have you back on sometime." Uh, I don't want to. I don't want to just start doubling up and only having repeat guests, but I am starting to reach out to some of the folks that I interviewed early in this project, which is 2 years ago now, and see if I can't line some of them up to come back for second conversations, which should be fun. Michael says, in question for discussion after I get started, what aspect of game design and production do I like best? That's an interesting question. It is an interesting question. Well, in order to answer that, then, I'm going to have to get started. So, if you're all ready, I'm ready. I'm going to grab my iPad Pro, because I do all my drawing on an iPad Pro, with the app Procreate and an Apple Pencil, none of which are sponsors of this here program. I just tell that because people want to know, they're curious, and so I feel it's important for me to share. But here, I'll just hit the button and we'll come over here, and this is the piece we're working on. It is my homage, excuse me, to Keith Parkinson's painting, which he titled Northwatch, but which originally appeared, most people, if you just had to describe what it is, most people would probably know it as the cover for Dragon Magazine number 137. I did this original pencil sketch. The first sketch I did while I was talking to Alex Kammer, the guy who is in charge of Gamehole Con. And then last week I came back and took the pencil sketch. What you see there is the blue pencil there. Let me turn that off. Yeah, so that's what the pencil sketch looked like when I was done. And then last week I came in and did some inking. It's all digital, so it's not really inking. I did the final line drawings and turned that into a coloring page, which, if you are a subscriber to the show's newsletter, free newsletter, I gotta remember to say our free newsletter, 50 years in the dungeon.substack.com. If you are a subscriber, a free subscriber, you got a copy of that coloring page in the newsletter this week. And you can download it and print it out and color it to your heart's content. Now I'm going to work on doing the flat colors. So as we talked about before with these drawings, they go in stages. Right, the first stage is that blue pencil, again pencil, sketch drawing, then the finished line drawings. And since I'm working digitally, I'm creating different layers rather than a single whole, the way Keith had to when he was doing the painting, or the way I would if I was doing it as a traditional media drawing. So this is one layer which has just our rider and dragon and some of the snow effects near them, And then there's another layer, which is just the snow that's near up to them. So they kind of go together like this. And then beyond that, I've got another layer, which is the far away. Zoom out on Keith's painting. The far away mountains, and then there will be another layer, which will be the sky and the clouds. But even that, those are those aren't single layers. They're going to be grouped layers. So for each layer, I need to do coloring. That comes in at least two more layers. One is flat colors, which is what we're going to start doing today, what I'm going to start doing here, laying in the flat colors for this drawing, for this homage. And I'll start with this layer. We're going to add another layer below it. I'm going to group those together. So it'll be a flat color, and then there'll be a details, kind of highlights and shadows color, and possibly even a third special effects layer. Anyway, that's what we're doing. Zoom in so I can see that. And now, while I'm going to get drawing, I guess I can start thinking about Michael's question. Before I do that, let me just remind everyone who's watching live, that you can, if you want to come into the chat and leave a question, I'm happy to talk about that. If you're watching on replay, again, that newsletter is a great place. You can leave me questions. I say ahead of time what I'm going to be working on. If you leave questions and comments, or send me a comment in the newsletter with a question, I'll answer it while I'm drawing. So even if you can't be here, or even if you're watching in a way that doesn't allow you to be in the live chat room, you can still get your questions answered and be part of the show. All right, so the question is, what aspect of game design and production do I like, or conversely, what aspect do I just really not like doing? All right, so there's I'm going to approach this in a couple of different ways, because for me there's a question of what I like, but there's a separate question of what comes easily. Oops, I'm on the wrong layer. My brush is way too big. So I think what I like best, what I enjoy the most, is the the preparation, right? The brainstorming, not just brainstorming though, the refining of the brainstorm. So particularly when I'm working on in a team, which doesn't happen so often these days. But when I was working at TSR or Wizards or any of the other in-house positions I had, very rarely is it a one-man or one-person show, and that's come on, a little bluer than that. Little bluer. No, that's not what I need. I wonder if I can, yeah, get it, pick the color up off there. Yeah. So when we're working as a team, right? Let me use the Dragonlance Fifth Age team as an example. Uh, Someone would be assigned. You'd go into a project knowing that someone was assigned to do the writing on it. Right? I would go in knowing that I was going to write it, but we would get together. I would get together with the team and possibly invite other people in to do brainstorming about what could go in it, how to approach the subject, and what topics should be covered, and what order they should come in. Um, and to create a broad outline of what is going to go in the book, which is which I like. That's a good part. But for me, the really fun part is the next part, which is where we've got a rough idea what's going to go in it, and I have a in most cases you have a rough page count that you're trying to work to, and then you're trying to take that uh, broad idea of what should go in it and create an actual outline uh, of what what will roughly take up X number of pages, and how are you going to fill the book? How are you going to take that idea of this book should contain X, Y, and Z, and figure out, okay, well, what's in chapter one, and what's in chapter two, and how many pages is that going to take? Probably. And this is, of course, all estimating. You almost never will get it right 100%, but what you're doing is creating the idea of what the final book is going to be. Not just what the concepts are, but what is going to be in the book. How many pages of, let's say, chapter one, section one. If you're doing a book like a novel, you're breaking it down the same thing. You're figuring out this is how many pages, this many chapters, what's going to happen, what's the pacing, right? When you're doing a story, and when you're doing a story, it's a lot easier to think about that. You're working on the pacing of the storytelling. If you're writing an adventure, you're doing kind of the same thing, um, in that you are trying to figure out the pacing of the adventure. But the fact of the matter is even if you're doing a book that's not that, if you're doing a book that's a supplement about magic spells or a certain uh, uh, fantasy creature, you still have that same kind of pacing that you, you or at least I do. You wind up thinking about the book in that kind of same uh, akin to storytelling. Right? How is the book going to break down, and so that everything we want will be in there. There'll be enough space to handle the things we want. Uh, I I didn't, when I came into writing professionally, I didn't like outlining. I didn't like outlining at all. Um, but the the folks I was working for insisted on outlining. That was the process. It had to be outlined so that they could plan around in part because uh, very rarely was one person doing all of the art, right, or writing the whole book. And so this outline stage, you're very often creating an outline that is not just for you. It's how the book is going to come together, so they can hand out chapters. I'm going to write chapter 1 and 3, and we're going to send it off to this freelancer to write chapter 2, and this other in-house person is going to write chapter 5. In order to do that, you need to have an outline. You need to be able to tell someone, this is what you're writing, and this is how many pages you've got to write it. So, as I say, when I came in to that's too dark. Uh, when I came in, I was used to doing all writing on my own. I didn't like to do outlining. I just wrote and figured it out as I was going. But that's completely impractical and does not serve the needs of a product that's being written uh, as a team. So I had to make myself do outlines. And like I say, when I started, I didn't like that. But the more I did it, the more I did projects like that, the more I found the outline was super helpful, so useful. Um, that these days, even if I'm writing by myself, I I will not go without an outline. Uh, and one of the things about an outline is it's a living document, right? You need to assess as you are going through the project how things are going, and adjust the outline because in most cases you can't. You're given a number of pages or a form factor uh, that you have to hit. You aren't just kind of writing in the abstract and seeing what you get at the end. You are writing to meet uh, a goal, and so you've got to look at what you're doing and adjust your outline as you go, and that's so helpful. That really is helpful. So I've found that I really, really like the outlining process and the tracking and adjusting the outlining process. I like it more than the actual writing part. Uh, I have, as the years have gone on, found that it is certainly true for me that I like having written more than I like writing. I find that writing is a challenging process. Um, even when I have the ideas down, actually putting them down in a form that is uh, finished and usable is nowhere near as enjoyable to me as um, as doing the outline, as coming up with the ideas. And even if I'm not writing the book, it's one of the things I've enjoyed about my work in management uh, is helping a creative, usually a writer, sometimes an editor, or I've done art direction too, uh, but helping a creative to get that vision and help them along that process, along that um, the more difficult task of taking that outline and making it a finished manuscript or image or whichever medium we're working in. Um, I like being a creative director and working with people while they are working on creative projects. Um, so yes, that's kind of the um, that's kind of the rambly answer to what do I like best. I like I like the preform. I like the everything pushing it right up to the start of go write the thing is my favorite part. My second favorite part is Now I'm done writing the thing. Between go and stop, that's a. It's not that I don't like it. I'd be a fool to say I don't like writing and creating game products, but it is not anywhere near as enjoyable as either the prep or uh, the development for me. I'm sure that there are a lot of people who would have almost exactly the opposite opinion, that the worst thing is prep, right? And like I say, I that used to be me too, but no longer, no longer. So there, that is my answer to that question. I'm going to look up at what's going on in the chat in a second, but I'm going to try and get a little bit more of this flat color down before I do. I guess the second half is things I don't like. I don't know. Let's say the writing is challenging, but it's not that I don't like it. And I like development. I suppose one of the things that I don't like as much, if I like doing the outline, I'm not as crazy about what comes before that, which is getting the stakeholders to commit to these. This is what the book is about. This is what the I guess it's the pitch process where you don't you're I mean, in some ways it's like the outline process, but it's much shorter. You're not writing the whole thing. You are trying to uh, create the to get the people who say yes, that's what we're doing, to agree. Because very often you come up, you're like, here is my 2 paragraph. I'm pitching a book about this, and the answer is, yeah, I kind of like that, but could we change it to this instead of that? That drives me crazy. And that also really depends on who you're working with, who the stakeholders are. But it's very, very frustrating when you are um, working on it. You come in with an idea for a pitch, and they say they. It's the most frustrating thing is when they say yes, except, and then their accept changes it to something completely different. I certainly found that to be something that happens um, in my little involvement with folks in Hollywood and other media. There's a lot more of, oh yes, we want to do that, except change it completely. Oh, let's see what's going on here. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Michael says, sounds like a coping mechanism for writer's block. Well, so a good outline does help you avoid writer's block to some extent, but it lets you know what you need to write. You don't wind up with a I don't know what goes next. But it doesn't stop you from having the I know what it needs to be, but I don't know how to make that thing. which is a different kind of writer's block. Okay. I see that I need to come back to this layer here. And I didn't quite get what I needed done there. Those lines aren't right. There we go. Okay. Come back to there. Yeah, I've been, so I say I'm working on this. I can say that what I'm working on is a big adventure. And I've had to, um, uh, it's been a while since I've done a big writing project. And I've had to um, get myself back. Like anything else, those are muscles that atrophy if you don't use them enough. I had no doubt that I could write. I know how to write. I've done it before. I know I'm a pretty good writer, but the muscles of sitting down and writing 1,000 to 2,000 words a day every day for 2 months in a row, well, that's a different thing, and kind of have to build that up. It used to be something I just did. There was a long time in my career where that's what I was doing, was writing 1,000 to 2,000 words every day, 4 to 6 days a week. Um, but between getting into doing management and and shifting my focus to cartooning as much as possible, it's been a long time since I've done that, and I will be brutally honest and say that it it took me it took me 2 months to shake that rust off and get to the point where I'm even close to producing the producing 1,000 words a day, 5 to 6 days a week. And again, I'll be brutally honest. I'm still not 100% there. I'm getting better at most days being able to do that, and being happy with the results of what I get when I do. But yeah, and another part of that is the getting older thing. Like everything else, you slow down. That's just the way of life, and being able to keep going full tilt for weeks and months on end is more challenging. I don't know. I bet Stephen King wouldn't say the same thing, but you know, if you never, it's like, I can say this from experience too, right? It if you it's more difficult to get back a skill you lost than you think it is. I'm not sure that it's more difficult than getting it in the first place, um, because that really is something that happens over the course of years, many of which you don't even know that's what you're doing, building up that particular set of skills and muscles. Um, but getting it back, you think, well, I used to be able to do this. I'll just hop in and get back to it, right? It's like a sport or any other physical skill. I used to be able to. I used to run marathons. I didn't. I never ran marathons, but you know what? I used to play tennis competitively. Getting back and getting being able to play. No, certainly not as well as I did when I was a teen, but getting back to the point where I can just go out and play well. It takes a long time to scrape the rust off and get that skill back in shape. Um, and as I say, what I'm discovering is that the same is true for the writing and design. So I'm working on it. Um, Michael says, I'm with you on organization and facilitating and nurturing. Took me until recently to realize I hate writing. I'm a storyteller, not an author. Sometimes I get into the zone. Yeah, yeah. I mean, certainly that's an important difference to be aware of, right? The difference between a storyteller and a writer, per se. There's so many different kinds of storytellers, so many different ways to be a storyteller. Um, so I'm trying to figure out what color I want this to be. I think I'm going to switch it over here to be the same as this one. Um, but the skill of being a writer, of putting it down so that the story is told when you aren't there. That's a Not every storyteller is good at that. In fact, I would dare say that probably most storytellers are not, because there are so many different ways to tell stories. And being a dungeon master is a kind of being a storyteller. And running a good game is different than writing a good adventure. Very different. There are people that can do both. There are people that can do one and not the other. And there are people who can't do either, and they like telling stories other ways. I so last weekend, last Saturday, was Independent Bookstore Days. Those of you who follow me on Facebook may have already seen this, me talking about this some. Um, it's certainly most of the people who are watching this will be uh, familiar with free RPG Day or Free Comic Book Day. Um, but there are variations of that happen in all different kinds of areas. Free record or record store day, right? Well, there was one that just happened this weekend, which is Independent Bookstore Day. It means to uh, publishers were releasing um, special products and making them only available through independent bookstores. Uh, yeah, and that's what was going on. And like I say, a lot of the publishers are getting involved by making special products, special editions, or small previews, or um, different products that were only available at independent bookstores. Why do I bring this up? Well, because on Friday last week, I got a message on Facebook from someone asking me about my book that was going to be released tomorrow. Free Comic Book Day is this Saturday. Michael says, "Oh, you know what? I lost track of that." So there you go. Go to your local comic book store on Saturday. Get some free comic books and see what's going on, and patronize your local comic book store. They need it. Um, anyway, yeah. So this person asked me about. Asked if he could ask me questions about my book that was coming out tomorrow, and my answer was, "I have a book coming out tomorrow." uh, and he showed me that the fine folks at how am I going to have to do that? How am I going to do that? Fine folks at HarperCollins uh, were releasing um, a book that contained material that I wrote for them about 15 years ago. About 15 years ago, I was contacted by HarperCollins, an editor at HarperCollins Children's Books, uh, uh, asking about whether or not or wanting to consult with me, to hire me to do a consulting call on the feasibility of making a tabletop role playing game for one of their properties. Was it possible? Really, was the question. And the property was a series, a young adult novel series called Warriors, which is about cats, warrior cats. If you have kids, you almost certainly are aware. Kids of a certain age, you almost certainly are aware of it to some extent. It's super popular, particularly with um, particularly with young women, young uh, tweens, but certainly not exclusively. Very popular series with a lot of people, and so I did the consultation, and I said uh, yes, I thought it was possible to do a tabletop role playing game, and uh, gave them an idea of one way it could be done, and long story short, they wound up hiring me to create this game for them. Um, and it wound up being called the Warriors Adventure Game, and based after naming conventions we used for the Pokemon Junior Adventure game. And this was in 2009. So bear in mind that this is before the current the modern D&D revival, and I mean D&D was no longer in the satanic panic era, right? It was no longer considered evil, but it was by and large considered that thing that people did in the 80s and 90s. Uh, and what are people still playing that game? Would something that would often come up in having conversations at that time. Um, so it was not a foregone conclusion that anyone would want to do such a thing, or that it was even possible. Again, let's say this editor was consulting with me to find out if I thought it was possible to make such a game. And then, as I say, they hired me to make the game, and I wrote a game, and they part of the deal was also that I would write adventures to go with the game, and those adventures would get published in the back the of one of the sub-series within the Warriors line. Um, and that's just what happened. Now, the thing was, at that point, the Warriors fans were wanting a computer game, and the fan base did not react well because they heard that there was going to be a game, and they all thought for sure it was going to be a computer game. And then what I did came out, and literally just like what I said, the response was something like, "That's what? That's like D&D or something. Who would play that?" And a very large proportion of the fan base just kind of turned their noses up at it. Now, having said that, there was also a significant portion of the audience that also were into games, or their their parents or their family or their friends were into games, and they did like it. I got very strong support from a relatively minor subsection um, of the Warriors fan base, but they were very dedicated. I got to see some wiki pages that were put together about my games and my adventures that kind of blew my mind. How much these people dove into and loved it, and I got to meet some of them at conventions. Um, they would they would say, You're the person that did the cat book. Are you the same one?" And that was great. It was great. I uh, got to meet fans, and it was terrific. As I say, that was in 2000. Well, we started in 2009. I think the game was released. It was released as a free downloadable PDF, never published, just available on the Warriors website, on the HarperCollins children's book website. And then the game itself, the adventures were in the backs of the books. Um, and that's all there was with it, right? That was the end. I think I wound up working on that over the course of 2.5 or 3 years. Different parts of the project got published, and that was it. It was a fun project. I got paid very well for it. I got paid. I didn't get paid game publishing industry money. I got paid uh, marketing money, which is much better. It was not a product that was supposed to make any money. It was a marketing expense. So that worked out very nicely for me. And because it was a marketing project, and because of the, the way it was, uh, uh, there were no back ends. There was no I didn't have any residuals or royalties based on it because it wasn't made to be published and sold. I just got paid a whole bunch up front to do it, and then they owned it, which is completely equitable. So they had no need to come back to me when they decided recently that they were going to take that material and put it in a book and make it available as an independent bookstore day product. Uh, and that's what got released. That's what this person was contacting me about. And in fact, they were asking, say, that they were a D&D player, and they wanted to get their daughter into into playing RPGs, but she had no interest in D&D. Would is this book that was coming out? It's called Warriors Enter the Adventure. Is the name of the book that got released over the weekend, and was it that kind of role playing game? And I was very happy to be able to tell him that it was, and to see that the I started looking it up online. The book got released, and it looks really good. I'm hoping to maybe get a copy of it one of these days because, as I say, they had no HarperCollins had no. They'd fulfilled all the terms of our contract. They had no reason to. It's 100% certain they had no obligation to pay me anything for doing this. It's one of the things that a couple of people have asked me about, and if I I should look into it. Uh, I have looked into it. I went back to my old contracts, and they confirmed what I knew, is that they own that. They do not owe me any money. But I sure would have liked to have known that it was coming out. I would have gladly promoted it. I would have gone to some local bookstores and to promote it if they wanted. Um, but that didn't happen. But the book is out there, so I just say that to you. You can find it somewhere. If you, I think it was like $10. The independent bookstores that wanted it could order it, and they were selling it for $10. But you can't order it. It's now, it's not like for sale. For sale, you can't go back now and order it. You could never order it off the website, off the Warriors website or the HarperCollins website. This is a promotion for uh, Independent Bookstore Day, and that's the only place to get it. Now I'm sure there'll be some kind of secondary market thing going on. I've sent an email to the HarperCollins asking if they could maybe send me a copy for my records, but I'm also not 100% sure what's in it because I didn't have any involvement. And because they own the whole thing, they could have taken it and given it to someone else to rewrite or expand upon or develop in some other way. Uh, all of that absolutely within their bailiwick. Uh, but the book does say on its cover, it says written by Stan. So I'm pretty sure they didn't. I'm pretty sure they didn't. It seems very likely this is a compilation of the material that I produced for them uh, 13 or 15 years ago. But I don't know. So that was my interesting story from this weekend. I had a book come out that I knew nothing about. All right, let me see here. I haven't gone back to work more on the dragon. I've been focusing on this guy. He's the more complicated part of this picture, anyway. So, yes, if you want to look for warriors, enter the adventure, maybe ask your local independent bookstore owner if they have a copy. You may still be able to get one. You may be able to find one online used. Um, if you want to search around the internet, you can still get the original Warriors Adventure game. The PDF is still several different places. Not HarperCollins no longer has it as part of the Warriors website, but like I say, it was a free marketing PDF. It was never sold, and it was all about promoting the thing. So I don't think, I can't say, but I don't think they care if someone is giving it away, because all it really does is point back to their books. Um, so I know I still have copies of the PDF. I have a copy of the PDF. I know that I have gone and found it online and downloaded it, pointed it to other people to find. I'm not going to. I'm not going to, because the places that are do have it are not official, and HarperCollins might care. I'm not going to promote the links to those places, but I will say that I had no problem looking it up and finding two or three different places that were that still had the PDF, the original PDF available uh, for viewing and download for free. Like it says, I'm surprised that they didn't ask if I wanted to update it or something. You know what? Um, I bet they didn't want to spend any more money on it. B, everyone I worked with, or I can make this, no one I worked with at the time is still at HarperCollins. So let's say it was 15 or more years ago. It was as much as 17 years ago that when we it was 17 years ago when we started working on this project. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Well, no, let's say no one there who I work with is still around. Yeah, I think it would have been nice if they had reached out. I'm not that hard to find. Uh, but c'est la guerre. Like I say, they didn't need to. They owned the whole thing. If all they wanted to do and all they did was take that original material and reprint it, they gave me credit. They gave me cover credit. My name is on the cover of the book. The artist's name is on the cover of the book. So from that perspective, they certainly did right by us again. That uh, it will. It got me at least one person already coming and asking me about it. I imagine that I will get more as time goes by. Um, so yeah, it would have been. I would have loved to have been able to be involved, but I don't feel like it. They were in any way um, ethically compelled to involve me. I think it would have been smart on their part, but I don't think they had any ethical uh, need to do that. Okay, so now I said when I was drawing this that I didn't draw this emblem the on the banner, and I would do it during the coloring process. And right now I'm thinking about whether I want to do that on this layer, and I think the answer is no. I'm not sure what layer I am going to put it on, but I don't think it's on the flats layer. All right, now that dragon, although that is certainly a flat color, the flats are not done for the dragon by any means. So let's come in and adjust these. Let me see what else we got going on here. What did the fans see, wiki and fans see in the game that I didn't see when I made it? Well, one of the things I didn't see was how much you know, how much they liked it. I did not get a huge feedback from people that liked it. People that liked it and played it, and um, you know, weren't really talking about it because all of the places that I saw that fans were gathering, the 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 strong opinion was that it was not cool. So the people who liked it didn't want to be seen as uncool, so they didn't go and hang out in those spots and talk about how much they liked it. Like I say, they did make wikis. I saw at least two wikis, um, and they they created. So I guess to this point, you need to know. So because the target audience was tween uh, girls, most they I think at the time they were saying they saw their audience as girls age 8 to 12 or 13, and I had been doing some work in for games for kids, and I'd had a little experience. I'd read a bunch of material on what um, types of games were popular with kids at different ages. Uh, what what types of activities they liked in their games. And one of the things that was that came out in all of this was that uh, there are there are several points in development, in neurodevelopment, where uh, groups of uh, uh, people within a certain age range like or dislike randomness. They like or dislike conflict and or uh, being uh, being in charge, being winning versus cooperative, and looking at what they had as the goal audience, um, I determined that what I didn't want, that randomness was not a big bonus. The idea that you don't know what's gonna uh, happen and you have no control over it. You roll the die and the die will tell you what happens. That was a kind of a conceptual turnoff. Also, that this was an age and a group that really liked to come to group consensus. A lot of discussion coming to group consensus. So I made it a diceless game. I'll be honest, I don't remember exactly what the resolution mechanics I had, but there's a lot of. Um, it certainly had a big part of group consensus in determining success and failure and what the results of actions were. Also, what I determined was it would be a negative if someone had to be the dungeon master, take the role of being the one in charge. That was a negative to this group. That was not the kind of game they wanted to play. So I designed the game to uh, to function like, I mean, I've seen a lot of people do this in the last in recent days. Design games built around um, the choose your own adventure style. You don't know what's going to happen next. You solve what's going on the page, and then it tells you to go to another page. And so the adventures were all done in choose your own adventure style, and you would take turns being the narrator. That the adventure would tell you that the narrator, because you do for this kind of game, there has to be secret information, and for the storytelling and for them to have a situation portrayed to them that they can try and solve. But you don't want to have one person who has to know everything and then can't participate in the game. So the game has it so that you oh hmm. The game has it so that you take turns being the narrator, and you when you're the narrator, you get the book and you read the page that you're on, and then it tells you to go to a new page. And then at one point it'll say, "Okay, your turn as narrator is over. Give the book to the next narrator and have them turn to page 112 or whatever." And so you could have a game that has an adjudicator, has a narrator, but it doesn't have to be one person, and everyone can still play. Which I thought was a pretty good solution. And on some of the wikis, people had taken. So I'd written out when you write that kind of thing, you start by making a flow chart of how the adventure goes and where your choices go and how they connect up. But you never publish that. You publish the game. But I found a couple of different wikis where people had gone back to my adventures and reverse engineered the flowchart of the adventure and put that up on the wiki so that you could look at the flowchart of the adventure. I thought that showed me that someone spent a bunch of time with this and they cared enough. They enjoyed it. They were very proud of having done that. So they told me they were really enjoying the game. Michael says, speaking of Diceless, did I ever play Amber Diceless? I played Amber Diceless a couple of times, and I like it. I like as a game design, I like it a lot. I'm not so fond of the the uh, the Princes of Amber series. I'm not so fond of Zelazny's world and storytelling. I don't dislike them; they just didn't really grab me, and so despite liking the game a lot, I really had no interest in playing it because most of the people who wanted to play it really liked that, and that was a big bonus for it wasn't just the game. Uh, all right, how am I going to do this? I'm going to turn that layer on, and I'm going to bring it up above this layer because I need to see those stripes again. Um, yeah, so I played Amber. The funniest thing is I played Amber with the first time I played Amber, I was familiar with both the game and the novels and stories. I mean, they weren't all novels. Um, and this was in Japan with my the group of gamers that I was one of the leaders of, and we the most of the group was completely unfamiliar with Amber. The guy that was running it was the guy that created uh, the website um, RPGnow.com. Sandy Antunes. He was working in Japan at the time. He was one of our group. I gamed a lot with him and his wife Emma and this other group. But he wanted to run the Amber game, and so we everyone agreed to it, though they didn't know anything about it. But the thing about Amber is if you don't really get the fiction, you can do some really weird stuff. This whole idea of um, you know, if you walk far enough, you can find a place where anything is true. Uh, it, if you're not buying into the the type of storytelling, the type the um, what's the word I'm looking for? Somberness is not the word but the seriousness, taking it seriously and treating it in with a certain style, as a Lasney style. um, you can get some really goofy stuff. For those of you who are comic book fans, independent comic book fans from the 80s and 90s, there was a comic called Those Annoying Post Brothers by a cartoonist named, a comic book creator named Matt Howarth. Uh, and it had a lot of parallels to uh, to what you can do walking the roads of Amber, except that it was um, purposely uh, humorous and ultra violent. It's about these just crazy drunk guys who could walk off and get anything they want. They could reality shift. They didn't have to walk the way you do in Amber, but they could just teleport between realities and find anything that exists in an infinite universe. And our game of Amber felt more like a game of Those Annoying Post Brothers. The game that uh, uh, Sandy was trying to run an Amber game, and the game that the players put took what he gave them and they turned it into an Annoying Post Brothers, a session of Annoying Post Brothers. So I don't think that he never offered to run another one. I don't think he was mad, but I think he was disappointed that that no one in the group really got it the way he wanted them to. I hope that at some point Sandy got to run with a Amber with some people who actually understood and liked it. Me, I thought the Annoying Post Brothers game was pretty fun. I tried to rein people in, but the more they asked questions, and Sandy was like, "Well, I guess you could do that," and I would think of an Annoying Post Brothers solution, way to explain or to to do what they were doing. So I think I wound up being someone who helped undermine what he was trying to do. Michael says Stephen Colbert has the option for the Amber series for his production company. Yes, I heard that, and he's got less than a month left on the air. So who knows? Who knows what might be coming down the road with Amber on it? All right. So now, having added those on, now I talked about while I was doing this, Keith's painting here definitely gets. You can see all the scales, and I'm not doing that here. Uh, so I've just created blocks of color, which I'm going to use some of the shading colors to help to increase the feeling of scales. But for now, I'm just looking. I see that the scales along the back and tail are definitely more kind of bony colored. The scales along the head are more. I don't. Yeah, I think that's going to create more questions. There we go. Bum 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 bum. All right. So as flat colors go, think I think the next thing I want to do is to bring in the the close up background because I want to change. I don't want the black lines to be black lines, and I'm going to have to change that on. I need to figure out what I'm doing on this snow field so I can change something on the dragon and rider lines layer. So let's come here. We're going to add another layer. We're going to group those two layers. And I'm going to start. I'm just going to start by laying a color down here. This is the thing is that this was absolutely not going to be the final color. But I need to start with a color. I don't want it to be pure white. Let's just a second and I will grab that this image again and see that although that's snow, right? We look at the snow and your immediate thought is, well, it's white. But let's look at that. It's not. It's blue. There's some white. When you get into the far distance, we get white. But even there's not a lot of that. There's a lot of blues and grays. So, what color am I going to make this close-up snow? Set to. There we go. That looks like that's probably good. I'll probably use a bunch of white to highlight this. But now, I'm going to turn on the alpha lock. And we're going to change the line color. Now I'm going to have to, when I put that in, I'm going to have to do an even lighter line color. But for now, so the question is this line color going to be dark enough that I can do a lighter version later? There we go. All right. There. So you see that's what I want that back layer to feel further away. And that's maybe a little too light. All right. That might not stick, but I think that's what that's going to be. And now I'm going to come back to the dragon layer, and I want to grab this color that I used for the lines there. And I want to come in here and anywhere that there's snow, I want to do that so that the only thing that gets a dark black outline is the rider and the dragon. Hmm. There we go. A little careful anywhere that it meets up with lines that are supposed to be on the tail need to stay black. Lines that are supposed to be snow need to be blue. Then over on this foot also. I think that's it. I mean, it's not it. Right now, it looks like a Dr. Seuss dragon. Yeah, I can see that. Well, you know, I cartoon it up. That coloring definitely does help give it a Seussian look, though. I think you're right. Saying the sales, that's the scales tilt on their side. Yeah, I mean Keith did an amazing. No surprise here. Keith did an amazing job on this, and there's so much detail that um, I am shorthanding out of existence as I cartoonify it. But oh, man. So right now I'm a little worried. I spent some time at the beginning trying to figure out what blue I was going to use or what bluish green I was going to use for the dragon. And right now I'm looking at it going, I don't think that color's working. But on the other hand, I also know that when I go in to add the darker colors that I'm going to use to create the effect, the scale effect, it's going to vastly change what that color looks like. That it should, if all goes well, um, tone that down a little, tone that kind of really. Well, I mean, it's just flat color, and that's purposely at this point. But it also, I understand that it hopefully, or my intention is that when I add these other effects, it'll make it a little less. It'll de-emphasize that particular aspect. Yeah, no, the blue. I mean, the dragon itself is very turquoise, right? I mean, I got this color by sampling off that, but it's one of the tricks that Keith did in this is by having all those details and darker lines and shapes within shapes that it de-emphasizes that color. This is the color, but without doing sometimes one of the tricks of doing these cartoons is that you don't want to use the actual color that's in the original painting because by in the simplification process it will just have a different feeling like this. um, the hope is that uh, in this case at least, as I add some of those extra details I'm planning to add in, uh, it will pull it back a little. Um, all right. So basically, although I certainly that far background I haven't touched at all, but for our front area, that's the flats. I've completed the flat coloring for the um, for the main section. That only took an hour and a half. As I want to say, the coloring is the slowest part of this process. Um, I don't I don't know. I feel like I'm good to keep going for a while. I don't know if you all want to hang around longer. You're certainly welcome to. I love having you here. Um, but I will, you know what? I will at least have a little pause here in case an hour and a half is enough for you. Thank you for coming and hanging out with me. Uh, I appreciate that. If you want to be the first to see this when it's done, remember that subscribing to the 50 Years in the Dungeon.substack.com free newsletter is the place to go, and you will get to see this as well, not the next day, but within a few days of when it's finished, you will be the first people to get to see it. You'll also get to see, if you are a paid subscriber, so it's a free newsletter, but there is a paid level. If you are a paid subscriber, you will also get to see a, uh, uh process video of the whole thing coming together. It's something I put behind the paywall. because it's have to put something there. Have to put something there, and that really is an extra. So yes. Now, having said that, I'm going to keep going. Michael says, I never looked at this picture closely. I always thought it was a tower mounted on its back, like the towers the Oliphants use. And, oh, so that wasn't a person, that was a tower on his. I can see that, yeah. I have to say that I certainly, in doing this, I didn't notice a quarter of the details that are on this guy, this character. All right. Tell you what, I am seeing now that I've finished this that I want to come in here and come back to the color layer. And I think that this gray right here is too dark. More dark than I want it to be. No, I find this guy super fascinating. Just kind of all the details of how his armor and cold weather gear are put together. Let's see. All right. All right. Time for a stretch. Time at least to put this down for a second and stretch. Ah! Becky says, thank you. Becky says the color is beautiful. Details will make it look more, quote, realistic. Greg just kind of felt a childhood connection to the simple drawing. Yeah, and you know what? I think that most people, like I made a coloring book version of this. Again, as I said at the beginning, if you are a member of the newsletter, it's already there available for you to download. And if you're coloring it, I think that you will probably do something that is has that kind of simplistic coloring style too. At least you start that way. I mean, this is certainly what I'm doing here. Uh, um, one of the lessons to learn from that is no matter how complicated it gets in the end, you start simple. Start simple and then play a little, add a little, take a little off if it doesn't work. Or you can just leave it simple. Like there's nothing, I don't think, except if I was trying to say, hey, compare these two side by side. I have done an homage to that thing. In that case, I think this looks a little too simple for 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 me, which is why I'm going to keep going. But if we take the original out of the picture for a second and we just look at this one, I think that's a fine cartoon guy on the back of a dragon in the snow. All right, so how am I going to do this? Well, we're going to come here and we're going to add another layer above layer 6 in this group at the top. We've got the lines layer, we've got the flat colors layer, and now we have another layer between them, and that's where I'm going to start adding in some of these extra details. Now, things I hadn't noticed. I talked a little bit before, like the the spikes at the top of the head are orange, like the rust colored scales down its body, and it has them along the jawline too. I didn't put that in. I didn't put that in at all, and I'm okay with that. It's just a simplification that I noticed that while I was doing the drawing, and I made that's a decision I did make before today, well before today, not to put those jawline uh, things on. It's just today that I decided for sure that I'm not going to get the rust color into the spikes along the back. I'm going to leave them all that kind of gray color. Let's see. Michael says, creative question. Creative question. When I come up with something creatively, it turns out has been similarly done by someone else. Do I change it or just admit that there's nothing new under the sun? Um, Depends. Uh, there's not a uh, one step answer to that. If I'm working on something and someone points out to me that someone else has done something similar, it will depend on how far along in the process I am. Uh, if I'm already in the middle of working on it and I like what I've done and I want to finish it under my original uh, vision, shall we say, I will purposely not look at what the other person has done. I will mark that I know it exists, but that my idea uh, was not inspired by it, and so I'm going to do what I want to do. If I'm not that far along, then I will look at what they've done and uh, and then do the same thing. You know, I would do in any case where I'm inspired by someone else's work. I will look at it and I will try and have my own decide whether I want to uh, mimic what they've done or purposely do something different. See something they've done and then uh, have my version be a reaction to it. Um, right? Very often that turns into okay, well, they did that, so I don't want to be in the same position they are, or I can see, oh look, there's a hidden problem I didn't know I didn't I would have had to stumble on. Now I can see from what they did that it's there. Let me find a solution to that. Or wow, they did that really well, but I could take it one step further and do this. Uh, so it will depend. Uh, if I have already done something and someone points out, oh, someone so did something like that, uh, then I will be, I'll go and look at it and try to hopefully see places where we did things differently. Hopefully, not find that they just did it better than I did, which is certainly a possibility. Uh, all right. But like I so I mean, kind of as a case in a potential case in point, that uh, Warriors based game that I did a the whole how to make a game that's a little bit like a choose your own adventure, or a DM-less game that is that's cooperative. There have been a lot of people who've done a lot of really good work in that field s- since then. There had been some before I did that. I was not like I came up with those on my own, but uh, there's been a lot more work in that field since then. People who pick up this book that HarperCollins just put out, they don't know that I designed this 17 years ago. They don't know that I designed this before those other things came out. So I am kind of preparing myself mentally for having to for the possibility that someone is going to look at what I did and say, "Hey, you copied so and so. You copied this other thing which is on the market." And I have to not I have to not get mad, and I have to calmly explain that no, I did this before they did their thing. We'll see. We'll see how that goes in this particular instance. But I think that that is somewhat in given that this book is out there, and I think that there are going to be a significant, some reasonably significant number of Warrior fans and RPG fans who will see it and not know that it was originally written in 2010, 2009, and 2010. That um, and I don't think that I guess kind of the opposite of that is I don't think that if there are similarities between this and what someone else has done, my first assumption is not going to be that they copied it from me. In theory, it's possible, but I don't think I don't think that's a healthy assumption to make. Um, yeah, so I guess to answer that question a little more specifically, sometimes uh, I will go and make use of what has been written before that I might not have known about, and sometimes I will n- not let myself have any knowledge of it until I'm done doing what I want to do, and then I may go and look at it and say, "Oh, now I want to go back and change something that I finished." Now here's a way to improve that thing I just thought was done. Does that answer the question, Michael? Is there did I get too deep on that? Did I dive too deep in my reinterpretation of it and wind up not answering your actual question? I answered it. It depends. Yep. And I mean that kind of thing happens all the time. I mean, um, one of my favorite ones was when I came to TSR, and when I joined the Dragonlance Fifth Age team. Um, Steve Miller, who was on the team already and was already working on a book called Heroes of Deception, I think. It was the Sneaky Heroes uh, supplement for the game. Um, he he was working on it, and he was when I first got there. One of the first times we were having a team meeting, and they were talking about how the project was going for him. And I certainly didn't have a lot to say at that point. I was new to the team, and Steve said, "All right, well, that things were going pretty good, but he'd had to go back and change one of the things that was in there because uh, because there was a book that just came out from West End Games, which was where I had been, that had done the innovation that he'd wanted to do about how to create an ongoing problem for the characters. Where I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a kind of uh, trick for a DM trick for how to create an ongoing um, mystery and source of tension. And then he said to me, "Oh, you just came from West End. Someone there did this thing. It's exactly what I was going to do in this book, and I've got to change it now. Oh, who wrote this thing?" And it was the book that I had written. Book my one of my books that had just come out, uh, and he hadn't paid enough attention to catch that particular detail. But uh, he he said, "Oh, I see. That's how it's going to be. You're going to be the person who has all my good ideas before I do." And so we joked about that for quite a long time. But that'll happen. Certainly, there have been times where I've had the same kind of thing. I thought I'm going to do this, and someone says, "Hey, I just read a book that had that." Just came out from Artausorian Games or someone. And then gotta go. Oh, but I was just gonna write that. They've already written it. You have to write something else. Yeah, like I say, I think that there's in the same way that we now will take something that was done in first edition or third edition D&D or sometime earlier and say, okay, I want to take that uh, and interpret it, or kind of like these homages I'm doing. These paintings are done, and they're done really well. Why am I spending my time redrawing something that a master artist, one of the best who's ever created fantasy art, has already done? Why am I redoing it? The answer is because I have something to say about it too, right? I have what I'm adding in here is a little bonus. It's a little uh, different point of view on what it is. It shows how it inspired me, and it's my way of tipping my cap to the people who've done things that I think are great. And the same thing is true in writing and game design. I've also met people who are very defensive about that, right? They think that because someone says, "Hey, what you've done is someone else did something like it," it's necessarily a condemnation of them for stealing someone else's idea. I think anyone who's done any kind of creative work understands this idea of parallel development or similar ideas being in the zeitgeist. And anyone who gets their hackles up over it being pointed out that someone else has done something similar um, is maybe being a little too precious or a little too defensive. Uh, Unless someone's accusing you, right? Anyone who's accusing you based on that is clearly someone who doesn't understand how creativity works. Michael says the most egregiously exact previous art instance was a scene in Dark Knight Rises when Anne Hathaway, in disguise, robs the safe in Wayne Manor. All right, I know the scene you're talking about. I don't I don't get what you're saying by bringing it up. How that is a previous art example. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I don't get it. Oh, you'd written a scene just like that. Okay, I get it. I get it. Yeah, yeah. Oh boy, that'll happen where you come up with a really, particularly something like that. It's a really great scene, and it's a process of this, as you say. There's nothing new under the sun. Those characters, Catwoman and Bruce Wayne and Batman, they are all iconic characters. Not besides the specific iteration. So there are going to be lots of situations that you can come up with for characters like that that someone else has used or is about to use. Yeah, but it does. You know what? I can totally feel you on that. That's it. When you first discover that the thing that you thought you'd done that no one else has done before has in fact been done, and it's been done by someone as good as Chris Nolan. Man, that's a hard afternoon. I think that the thing I try and do after I get over the disappointment of okay, someone's already done it and maybe did it better than me, is the I try to bear in mind what that says is that I came up with a really good idea. Right? It's so good that this brilliant person had it before me. Right? Because you know for sure that you did not steal it from them, and there's the disappointment of well, to some extent, I can't do it just like that. I can't now that I know it. I can't I can't publish something which is beat for beat the same thing. There have to be differences now that I'm aware of it. And yeah, like I say, the disappointment of your great idea being uh, now having to change to a greater or lesser extent, probably greater, which is why it's a, a pain in the ass. This is why it makes you sad. But I think that it's important or healthy to try to include the pat on the back for yourself. All right. I mean, what it really means is the idea I came up with was good. Yay me. Now I got to try and do that again and hope that no one else beat me to it. And I certainly, have heard tell of people that this happens to, and I think that Steve Miller told me about another time when something similar happened to him, right, where if it happens to you multiple times, you start feeling like you're snake bit. Right? If I have a good idea, I shouldn't even write it because someone else is going to steal it out from under me. I don't encourage that thinking, but I understand it. There. All right. Well, so that certainly has toned down the color a little. Do 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 do. Add a little lighter color. Still got to go back and add a darker version of a second dark version for the orange sections. But I'm going to finish adding these lighter versions for the blues. I'm looking at those horns. I got to do something about those horns. I don't know what yet. He's still looking very blue. Um, what's worse is that I had written it 20 years before, says Michael. Yeah. Yeah. Boy, yeah. No, there are a few things like that in my drawer. Things that I wrote and just kind of set aside, and then 15, 20 years, someone else did something just like it, and now my thing that I've been sitting on is can't go out like it was intended. Hey, Dale Donovan. Back at Dragon Magazine, we called such occurrences as cosmic consciousness. That's a good term. I like that. How are you doing this evening, Dale? And Chris Andrew is here. Sorry I'm late. Please repeat everything I've said for the last 2 hours. No. Watch the replay until you get to this point, in which case, there you go. How is that? All right, that's looking pretty good. All right, let's come up and go to these horns. Still just working on the dragon. I haven't gotten to the guy yet. Diving into the cosmic consciousness. All right, I think that's what the dragon is going to look like. I think that's what he's going to look like, and no matter what I did. Um, Chris says, I keep thinking of things the dragon is about to say. Well, the listing did say open floor plan. He does look like. I mean, my version of him does look like he's given a wise ass comment. I'm not sure that Keith's original version looks quite as much of a smart ass as mine does. That's funny. All right, let's see. We'll move on to our Dragon Rider. No, no. 2 hours and a bit now. I don't know how much more I'll go, but I'm certainly going to go for a bit more. Oh, thank you, Michael. And Michael says the highlights and shadows have reduced the flatness I was talking about. That's good. I'm glad. I'm glad I was right about that. That's, as I say, we're not always. I I have a plan. It doesn't mean that I'm 100% sure I'll be right. Can't believe tomorrow is the last day of April. Where the heck did April go? One of the things, those of you, again, to bring up our free newsletter, 50 Years in the Dungeon.substack.com. Um, if you are a subscriber there, tomorrow there will be a print at home calendar. I've been taking the calendar pages I worked up for the calendar I printed at the end of last year. Some of you purchased. Thank you very much. Um, and I've taken each of those what are 8 by 16 spreads and reduce them so you can print them out on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Uh, so you can print it at home and have the calendar there. It's not as fancy. It's not as high resolution, but It's still one of the drawings we've done here for the show, and a calendar. So that'll be on the in the newsletter tomorrow. Also, if you're a member of my Patreon, it will be coming to you in a patron update tomorrow. I like so you see this little face here. You think, why did he add that in, Stan? And it's because when you zoom in, he's got one of those on his. Talk about details. He's got one of those on his back. I never noticed that before. Just one of those things that I learned doing these homage drawings and looking closely at a piece that I've been staring at for 20 or 30 years and I never noticed. David Schwartz says, "Looks like he looks like Jeff Foxworthy," and he does. He does kind of look like Jeff Foxworthy, but he looks kind of like Jeff Foxworthy. This is the fact that this original piece was done in 1987 says it probably wasn't Jeff Foxworthy. But then again, back in 1987, mustaches like that were a lot more common. Looks like it could be one of the members of Leonard Skinner or Alabama. a couple of extra strands. I don't want to put too many in. Again, because this is going to be small, I have to remember to just add enough so that the eye becomes aware of it, not so much that it drowns out the other stuff around it. It's looking good. Again, I zoom out so I can see what it looks like small. You might be a frost barbarian. I just noticed that part of your comment, David. That's funny. That there is funny. Is Jeff Foxworthy also the guy that comedian that did "There's Your Sign," or is that another one of those guys uh, in his troupe of comedians that tour together? You might be a frost barbarian. If you have to warm your dragon up for 15 minutes before you go riding on the plains, you might be a frost barbarian. If you spend more time in the evening defrosting your mustache than you. No, that's not a good way. You spend less time in the morning fixing your hair than you do in the evening defrosting your mustache. You might be a frost barbarian. It's looking good. At least I think so. You don't have to agree, but you don't have to disagree either. You can just quietly think otherwise. It's late in the evening. I don't need those kind of negative vibes. What's with all the negative vibes, Moriarty? I like how he's coming along. Yeah, so like I said earlier this evening, I'm not sure what's going to be going on next week. I might have a guest, um, or I might not. And there's a chance one of these weeks I'm actually just going to take a week off and I know, crazy, right? And just not have a live stream one Wednesday. Maybe, maybe. I mean, next week if I don't have a guest lined up and I don't have a piece of art lined up, I don't know what I'll do. I mean, I could do another studio night where I'm drawing a new piece from scratch. I certainly have some other projects that need drawing, but most of them are under some kind of NDA, and so I can't really draw them uh, on a live stream. But I'll see if I can't. Yeah, again, if I don't have someone to talk to, if I don't have an interview guest lined up, I'll see if I can't figure out a project that I can draw. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. Nope. Becky says I like the hat details. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think this is coming out okay. I'm always a little uncertain. I was talking about this earlier, right? That this painting that Keith did is one of the all-time greats, and I am among the very first thing I'm doing is simplifying it. So it's always going to be less than. But as I often talk about on the Thursday night show, um, in the end, if the only thing I get out of this is that it's fun, this is time well spent. And if I get something that only I have no other use for than to, I can look at it and go, huh, I did that. That's time pretty well spent too. There's always Dragonlance night. We can eat Otic spiced potatoes. Have you? I know that in the Leaves from the End of the Last Home book, there's a recipe for Otic spiced potatoes, and I know that uh, Kate Novak, Jeff Grubb's wife, Kate, um, was did many of the recipes for that book, and I think I remember hearing Jeff and Kate, particularly Jeff, tell a tale about when they were getting ready to put that book together, that he had to eat a lot of spiced potato recipes as Kate was trying to create a recipe that could be the genuine article, and testing them out. So every time she'd make a batch of spiced potatoes, well, Jeff had to eat them. All right, getting very close. 8:30, so we're doing this 2.5 hours. I think I'll finish up this work on our main character here, and then call it an evening. All right, so here's where I need to figure out what I'm going to be doing with that tree's signature. And I think I'm going to actually put that on the lines layer, drawn in white. So it'll just float above everything. So let's go to that lines layer, turn off, I had it on alpha lock from working on this snow before, but we're going to grab white. We'll start with white here. And we are going to draw a circle. There we go. That's about right. Then we come back so I don't continue drawing on the wrong layer. That would be bad. I think, I think, I think that's it. Now, of course, there's finishing. First of all, putting the detail in the snow in this near uh, the the layer he's standing on, and then putting the detail on the mountains in the background, and then putting the color in the sky. So I'm not done. Chris says he never noticed the flag tree. Yeah, I didn't notice that until I was working on the drawing too. Total surprise to me. Adam from DL Saga YouTube channel literally recreated and cooked every recipe in Leaves' book on stream. Wow, I hope he enjoyed them. I think that he has Kate to thank for a good many of those recipes. I know Margaret did a bunch too. Both Kate and Margaret are are exceptional cooks. You say I tried it. You pictured it with more flavoring. I think in the end that they went for something that was that was going to be palatable rather than maybe match exactly what the books said. I mean, they wanted something that people, when they made, wouldn't go, "Whoa, okay, well we tried that once," and they wanted something that you could then flavor to taste and turn it up. Um, so yeah, I remember discussions. You know what? I wasn't there when they made the recipes, but I remember uh, being in discussions with the DL5A group about those recipes and how they were maybe a little underspiced. Um, there were some of us, perhaps, who came from the East Coast, who said that that might have something to do with the fact that these were uh, recipes created by people from the Midwest who don't like spices nearly as much as people on the coast do. Someone might have said something like that and gotten some dirty looks, but someone might still stand by that. Someone might still stand by that comment. All right. I think for sure I'm going to say that is our drawing for the evening. There it is. You see, we started with just the line drawings. Now we've got put the flat colors in on that character and put the highlights in, and really just background work to do, which is a little less time consuming and a lot more boring. So probably a good time to stop streaming just now. Um, So yeah, thank you all for popping in and saying hi, Chris, Andrew, and Michael in chat, and Becky. Becky, sticking around the whole evening. That's I mean, no reason you shouldn't, but I can't think of any reason why you should either. But so glad to have you though, Dale Donovan, who was here a little earlier. We certainly had some troll came through trying to sell me followers. We won't talk about them anymore. Yeah, I had a good time. It was a good evening. I don't know. As I said several times now, don't know what next week is going to hold. Uh, but if you are a subscriber to our free newsletter, 50 years in the dungeon.substack.com, I announce ahead of time what's going to happen on the show, so you'll know then ahead of time. Or just come back next Wednesday, and I'll either be here or I won't. Oh, yeah, hi, Greg. Hi, Greg. I know Becky's the one leaving the chat, but I know you're here too. Didn't mean to leave you out. Um, yeah. Thank you all for being here. If you could, before you go, give this stream, wherever you're watching it, a thumbs up. Give it the like, whatever the like is for that platform. Give it a thumbs up or a heart or a like or a smiley face, whatever. Definitely helps to get this channel shown to more people, uh, get them to come in and become members, hopefully, and get me up. I'm shooting to get to maybe around 1,000. Okay, I'm hoping to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by end of year. That's seeming not very likely, but it's feasible. It can be done. Absolutely can be done. So I'm setting that as a goal, but one that I won't beat myself up about if I don't hit it. Yeah. And I'll be back tomorrow night with a new episode of Random Encounters. We'll do some improv cartooning together. Also on Sunday night, the Sumo Show will be back on. Not on this channel, but if you look for Sumo Show or The Sumo Show, you should find us. We'll be on Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Pacific, talking about the upcoming new sumo tournament, which is not really a topic for this show, though you got to be careful about asking me questions because I'll just talk sumo till your ears fall off. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. I had a really great evening. I hope you did too, and I will look forward to talking to you very soon.